Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
All right, buckle up, because training camp is knocking on the door and somebody just handed the Washington Commanders a homework assignment they didn't ask for. Bleacher Report dropped a pre-camp checklist this week, 3 things they say Washington absolutely must do before rookies even lace up their cleats on Friday. And look, I read it, I sat with it, and I've got some thoughts. Some of it, dead on. Some of it, completely out of touch with reality. So today we're breaking down every single item on this list, and I'm telling you right now whether the Commanders should actually be scrambling to check these boxes before next Wednesday's first practice. Let's set the scene first, because the calendar is moving fast. Rookies are reporting to camp this Friday. Veterans trickle in shortly after. And by next Wednesday, pads are popping and the real Commanders football is officially back. That means whatever decisions this front office is going to make before the pads start flying, they need to make them now. So a checklist dropping at this exact moment isn't just clickbait, it's actually a fair question to ask. Is this team camp ready? Let's find out. First up on the list, and honestly the one I agree with the most, add a veteran wide receiver. Now I know, we've beaten this drum before on this channel, but it bears repeating because it is the single biggest hole on this entire roster heading into camp. Let's talk about what we actually have. Terry McLaurin is the unquestioned WR1, and when he's healthy, when he's locked in, the man is an all-pro caliber receiver. We watched him prove that a couple seasons ago. Nobody's debating Terry's talent. The problem starts the second you look past him. Right now, on paper, Antonio Williams is projected as this team's WR2, a rookie, completely unproven at the NFL level, a guy who profiles more as a slot specialist than a true number 2 option who can win outside and stretch a defense vertically. Behind him, you've got a rotating cast of characters: Dyami Brown, Quinn, Jamison Crowder. Look, the names keep shifting depending on who's healthy that week. Guys like Luke McCaffrey trying to carve out a role, and the hope, the prayer really, is that 1, maybe 2 of these young guys suddenly figure it out and become a legitimate 3rd or even 2nd option in this offense. But here's the thing about hope as a roster-building strategy: it's not 1. None of these guys have proven anything yet at this level, and training camp starting in a matter of days is not exactly a wonderful time to be crossing your fingers. Here's why this matters so much. If Antonio Williams is your WR3, the expectations are completely different than if he's your WR2. As a WR3, you get to ease into the league. You get real playing time as part of a starting trio, but nobody's demanding you be a focal point of the game plan from week 1. As a WR2, though, defenses are game planning for you. Quarterbacks are trusting you in critical 3rd down situations. That is an entirely different level of pressure for a guy who hasn't played a single professional snap. So bringing in a veteran receiver doesn't just add a name to the depth chart, it fundamentally changes what you're asking your rookie to do. It buys him time. It buys this whole receiver room legitimacy. So who's actually out there? This is where it gets fun, because the board right now is stacked. Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, all unattached as of this moment. There's chatter about a potential run at Brandon Ayuk if things in San Francisco go sideways. And don't sleep on the idea of Deebo Samuel running it back for 1 more year somewhere new. That is a legitimately deep pool of proven, accomplished receivers for a team with a glaring hole to pick from. Now, if I'm Washington, my dream scenario, the absolute best-case outcome, is Tyreek Hill. Explosive, game-breaking speed that would turn this offense into an absolute nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators to prepare for. But let's be honest with ourselves here. That comes with a massive asterisk, because his health situation right now is shaky at best, and banking your offseason plan on a receiver who might not be full go is a risky bet to make with training camp bearing down on you. So if Hill isn't realistic, my next call, and honestly the one that makes the most sense given everything swirling around this situation, is Stefon Diggs. Here's the twist that makes this one juicy. Diggs is a DMV native. This is his backyard. And from what he's been putting out on social media lately, the man is not being subtle about wanting to suit up for the Washington Commanders. We're talking not so subtle hints, the kind of posts that make you go okay. He's clearly angling for something here. A hometown kid coming back to play for his childhood team? That's not just a good football move, that's a storyline made for television. That's the kind of narrative that gets a fan base buzzing before a single preseason snap is played. So yes, item number 1 on this checklist, adding a veteran receiver, I'm fully on board. This roster needs it, the front office knows it needs it, and the names available right now make it an achievable, realistic fix before or even during training camp. Now let's move to item number 2, because this is where the checklist starts to lose me a little bit. Bleacher Report says the Commanders need to pick a defensive play caller before camp starts. And I've got to ask, has anybody actually been paying attention to this offseason? Because this decision has already been made, and it wasn't exactly done quietly. The second the Commanders hired their new defensive coordinator, it became crystal clear how this was going to work. Head coach Dan Quinn made the call early. This is the coordinator's defense, and the coordinator is calling it. Full stop. There was never a competition, never a we'll figure it out in camp situation. This decision was locked in from the moment that hire was made. And when you actually think about why, it makes complete sense. The new coordinator is bringing in a scheme modeled after the Brian Flores defensive system, a style built on disguise, aggression, and exotic pressure packages that have become the hot trend across the league recently. Dan Quinn has never called that specific style of defense in his career. He's got his own background, his own philosophy. So why would you hand play calling duties to a coach running a system he's never actually operated before when you can let the guy who's lived and breathed that scheme run it himself? It's not even a close call. If you want to go deep on exactly what that scheme looks like, all the disguised fronts, the pressure packages, everything that's been modernized and brought here to Washington. We've done a full breakdown on that already, so definitely go check that out. But for now, just know this. Item 2 on the checklist, already checked off weeks ago. This isn't a decision hanging over training camp. It's a decision that's already shaping how this defense has been built from the ground up. All right, now we get to the item on this list that I think is the most controversial. And frankly, the one I disagree with the hardest, trading away Daron Payne before training camp even begins. Let that sink in for a second. A veteran, productive, disruptive interior defensive lineman, and the suggestion is to just ship him out before a single practice snap this preseason. The reasoning behind this suggestion is that Washington has, historically, been willing to move on from defensive linemen as they approach the tail end of their contracts, and Payne is entering the final year of his current deal. On top of that, there's an argument that the depth behind him along the defensive front is solid enough to absorb the loss. Here's why I think that logic completely falls apart when you actually look at the roster. This is a win-now season for the Washington Commanders. Everybody in that building knows it. The expectations aren't let's develop and see where we are in 2 years. The expectations are let's compete right now. And even though Payne is on an expiring deal, even though there's currently no indication a new contract is coming, he remains an absolutely essential piece of this defense, specifically because of what's happening around him on that defensive line. Let's talk personnel for a second, because this is where it really clicks into place. 2 of the other interior defensive linemen on this roster have, to put it plainly, struggled mightily against the run throughout their careers. That's been a consistent, well-documented issue. Now, help has arrived in the form of a new veteran addition who profiles as a genuinely strong run defender and can slide into the nose tackle spot if something were to happen to Payne. That's good depth insurance. But insurance is not the same as a starter. Expect Daron Payne to be out there on early downs constantly, eating up blocks, setting the tone against the run, while the more athletic, Twitchy interior guys get deployed in specific passing situations where they can use their get-off and their stunts to rush the passer. That's the entire structural plan for this defensive front, and Payne is the anchor that makes the whole thing function. Here's the part that really seals it for me. You cannot get to those juicy third and long. Pin your ears back pass rush situations if you can't stop the run first. If you can't stop the run, offenses stay ahead of the chains, they control tempo, and suddenly your explosive pass rushers never even get the opportunity to do what they do best. Without Daron Payne holding the fort in the middle of that line, this defense simply does not have enough proven run-stopping ability to consistently force teams into third and long. And if you can't force third and long, this whole scheme, this whole aggressive Flores-style pressure package everybody's excited about, loses a huge chunk of its teeth. So here's how I actually see this playing out, and I think this is the realistic path forward. Washington is going to ride with this roster and see exactly what they've got. If this team is competitive, if they're hanging around the playoff race, fighting for the division or a wild card spot as the season rolls into its second half, there is no version of this front office trading Daron Payne away mid-season. None. In that scenario, they let him play out the year, let him hit free agency next offseason, and try to recoup a compensatory draft pick for their trouble. That's the sensible, patient approach for a team that believes in what it's building. But, and this is a real but, if the wheels fall off, if this team finds itself out of the playoff picture, if, heaven forbid, the quarterback situation takes a hit and this season starts slipping away, then sure, that's when you explore moving Payne for future draft capital. You extract whatever value you can while he's still got trade appeal, and you start pivoting toward next year. It's not a decision you make in July before a single snap of football has been played. It's a decision you make in October or November once you actually know what kind of team you're working with. Trading him now, before training camp, before the pads even go on? That's not roster management, that's panic. And there is absolutely zero indication the Commanders' front office is panicking about anything right now. So let's tally up this so-called pre-camp checklist. Item 1, adding a veteran receiver. That's a real need, a smart suggestion, and something this team should genuinely be pursuing right now with names like Stefon Diggs sitting right there, practically begging to come home. Item 2, naming a defensive play caller, already decided, already baked into the scheme, and honestly a little out of touch to even list as an outstanding item at this point. And item 3, trading Daron Payne. A suggestion that ignores exactly why this defense needs him in the trenches for a win-now season, and one that simply doesn't hold up when you look at the roster construction as a whole. Here's the bigger picture, though, and why all of this actually matters heading into training camp. This is a franchise trying to build sustained momentum, coming off a season that turned heads around the entire league. The margin between a good year and a great year often comes down to exactly these kinds of decisions: the receiver room depth, the defensive identity, and whether you keep or move veteran pieces at the right moment. Get the receiver decision right, and suddenly this offense has multiple weapons capable of taking pressure off each other every single week. Get the defensive continuity right, which they already have, and this unit can hit the ground running from day one of camp instead of wasting valuable practice reps sorting out who's in charge. And keep the right veterans in the building like Daron Payne, and you give this roster its best possible shot at competing deep into the season. So as rookies roll into camp this Friday, and as the full roster gets to work next Wednesday for that very first practice, keep an eye on exactly these storylines. Watch to see if a familiar name like Stefon Diggs suddenly shows up on the roster. Watch how this new defensive scheme starts to take shape in padded practices. And watch how this front office continues to talk about Daron Payne's role heading into the season. Because how they handle these three things will tell you a whole lot about how serious this organization is about building on last year's success. All right, that's going to do it for today's breakdown. But before you go, I need something from you. If you found this video helpful, if you've got strong feelings about any of these 3 items, drop a comment right now and let me know. Do you think the Commanders need to go get Stephon Diggs before camp starts? Do you agree Daron Payne needs to stay put all season? Let's get a real conversation going down in that comment section, because I read every single one of them. And if you're new here, we are on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single one of you watching right now can help get us there. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single update as we roll through training camp and into the regular season. This is going to be a fun, wild ride, and I want you along for every step of it. Until next time, hail to the Commanders.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.